I'm standing in one of Chester's famous rows. Now these rows are a system of two-tier shops which run right through the main streets of the city. There's nothing quite like them anywhere in the whole world, and dendrochronology of some of the timbers has dated them back to the late 13th century. Chester's rows weren't always as popular as they are today. Daniel Defoe, on his tour through England and Wales, said this of the rows: "The rows, as they call them, add nothing, in my opinion, to the beauty of the city, but just the contrary. They serve to make the city look both ugly and old. These rows are certain long galleries at one pair of stairs which run along the side of the streets before all the houses, though joined to them, and as is pretended, they are to keep the people dry in walking along. This they do indeed effectually, but then they take away all the view of the houses from the street, nor can a stranger that was to ride through Chester see any shops in the city. They make the shops themselves dark, and the way in them is dark, dirty and uneven." Defoe's distaste for Chester's rows was shared by many of his contemporaries. At the time he was writing, people who lived outside the busy commercial centre of the city were looking for excuses to turn their own sections of walkway into extra rooms and hide the old-fashioned timber construction behind new brick frontages. Lower Bridge Street had already been almost entirely stripped of its rows, and whole stretches had disappeared from the far ends of Watergate Street and Eastgate Street. If the row was considered useless or dangerous, they did this with the blessing of the City Assembly. It was the Victorians, with their taste for the antique and quaint, who saved the rows for future generations by making sure that new buildings always retained the row. They were given legal protection by the City Council in 1845. Row buildings were built on narrow plots of land set at right angles to the street, with a long narrow cellar only a few feet below street level. Above that you had a half-timbered house, set back from the street with a walkway in front of it. From the early 16th century onwards, the upper stories of row buildings grew bigger, jutting out over both walkway and street, with supporting posts and small shops below them at row level. In time, the shops encroached so far that they obstructed traffic, so in 1673 a law was passed demanding that they be fitted with hinges so that they could be folded up when not in use. Later, sloping stall boards were fitted between the edge of the walkway and the posts, where goods could be displayed, for markets were often held in the rows. It was not until the 19th century that they gained their present neat appearance. The advantages of the row structure are obvious. It's possible to shop completely in the dry, so it's surprising that they've not been copied elsewhere, but they haven't. They remain a unique feature of a unique city. Chester's rows also contain some of its most ancient pubs. The Boot opened in 1643 as a pub, but before that it was a merchant's house, and the cellar here dates from the medieval period.